The views expressed by our guests in the following video are solely the opinions of our guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and or opinions of the Ola 7 podcast show. Viewer discretion is advised.
My name is DJ Ola 7 Owen. We're Kwamado, the Chief Air Marshal on your number one podcast in the land, the Ola 7 podcast. It is the special edition of On the Spot, the place where we bring you the biggest names and most loved personalities, from artists, actors, musicians to sports stars, politicians, religious leaders, and socialites. You name them, and we've got them here on your number one podcast. So joining us on this podcast today is His Majesty's Ambassador to Zimbabwe, Pete Vowles from the UK. He's been all over the world working in diplomacy and development, and since 2018, he has been here in Harare building stronger ties between the UK and Zimbabwe. We are looking forward to hearing his insights and experience. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Ola, thank you so much. A real honor to be with you. Thank you.
And indeed, you're the first ambassador to be on the show.
Special honor to be the first ambassador. Thank you very much for inviting me.
So let's talk about your early life and personal journey in Zimbabwe. Ambassador, you once shared that 33 years ago, you took a bus from Mbare to Nyamapanda, on your way to Chifamba Secondary School. A journey you have said shaped everything that followed for you. Can you just take us back maybe to that experience? Or what stand out most from that moment in your life?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine a young man from Britain who'd never been to Africa before, first time in Africa, first time in Zimbabwe, taking the bus from Mbari through the beautiful countryside of Morewa, Motoko. And you remember, if you know, when you cross the pass at Suswe Pass, and you go, and the road goes down and down into Mudzi, and get to Suswe, and then you have to walk from Suswe to Chifamba, just 2 or 3 kilometers off the road. Say a young man from
what
the UK.
Were you doing there? You were a teacher there?
So this is a time when Zimbabwe hired, I think, post-independence, Zimbabwe was hiring expat teachers into rural schools. So I was paid and appointed by the Ministry of Education as a teacher in Chifamba, and I taught in the secondary school. And it was a life-changing bit of my, well, it was life-changing, as I said. I mean, it kind of changed and shaped everything in terms of how I've followed my career ever since.
So you've been a teacher for how long? You did teaching, for how long?
I taught, I was a teacher in Chifamba for a year, and then I moved to Morewa, and then I worked, I had an office in the district council in Morewa, and I worked for an NGO then supporting teachers in the Cross-Smash East. So then I had a great job. I had a Land Rover, and I basically drove around Mashonaland East, working with head teachers and teachers, and we were by that stage we were then getting young Zimbabwean volunteers to go and work in schools on peer education, youth education.
Okay.
But I was pretty clear that period of my life that I wanted to, I think probably never really thought of it before, but that period of my life that I wanted to then work in development or international affairs. So from there, then I made a commitment, and ever since I've worked in pretty much internationally all around the world. But I say great to come back to Zimbabwe after all this time. 33. It is literally just over 33 years ago I first came here. So,
Hey, so 33 years. That's a long time. So how old are you?
Me, and now I'm 52.
52. Wow. Interesting. So you were a young boy.
Young man. Yeah. Very young man.
Young man.
And I was here on and off in Zimbabwe until about 99. It was a great period of my life.
So how did your time in Zimbabwe back then influence the path you have taken in diplomacy and development?
So I was pretty clear when I came here, and for those 5 years, I was pretty clear that I wanted to then work in international development. Or I'd seen, I'd experienced work. I learned so much from the community that I lived in when I was in Suswe. And later in Morewa, I'd learned so much about people, my friends and the fellow teachers taught me so much about the world. And I was pretty clear that I wanted to then work in international development. So from there, when I finally went back to the UK, I worked for a little bit in the UK Health Service, and then I moved into what is now the the government, or was then the government's International Development Agency. So it was the agency that was responsible for all our work overseas on humanitarian aid, on health and education. So I've worked for them in Afghanistan, in Bangladesh, in India, DRC, Kenya, Myanmar. And then when the job was, because in our system, the jobs gets advertised, when the job was advertised for ambassador to Zimbabwe, I mean, it was my dream. I've tried many times. I've kept an eye on Zimbabwe. I'd followed Zimbabwe. It was a kind of and trying to find a way. How could I come back and make a contribution to Zimbabwe? Given that Zimbabwe had taught me and given me so much in those early years, I wanted to find what's the way I can come back. How can I make a contribution back to this beautiful country? So when the job was advertised, I was there. I filled in my application. My wife and I, she'll tell you, we practiced the interview time and time again. Like, this is the job I want to do, luckily I passed the interview, got the job. In our system, when you get the job, you have to keep quiet for some months because it's not you have to then ask permission from the government and you have to go through the sort of protocol. So
you think that your time that you spent here in Zimbabwe contributed, to your interview as well?
I'm sure. When I said when they asked me, why do you want the job? I said, well, I started my life in Zimbabwe, my career, but also I think so much of so much of what I learned from the community I lived with has shaped how I've worked in other countries. How I have I don't want to be mean or rude about other international actors, but when we sat in the community in Suswe and when you watched international organizations arrive, they came in their big Land Rovers, the big white Land Rover, and they drove into the village and they would ask some questions and then they look at their watches, we got to get back to Harare by before dark, and then they'd leave. And we'd all sit in the in the community or in the bottle store and this guy,
but also with others.
Where we sit there and we'd be saying, what are they doing? They just come here. They know they know nothing. They just come in and they've left. And so actually now, but I've been that person. Now I'm in the last 20 years I've been the guy in the white in the Land Cruiser turning up in a rural area, and it shaped me because I think every time I go somewhere in a rural community, I try to think, what's it like for this community? Yes, we're foreigners. We need to be respectful. We need to have some humility. But also we just need to think, we need to really try and understand where we add value. And I remember what it was like. And obviously I was a foreigner, but I remember the conversations we had back in those days. And they've hopefully, it shaped how I've approached my job, my career as in international development, as a diplomat, trying to see the world from other people's perspectives. I guess a key thing of diplomacy is trying to understand, we have our view as a British diplomat, but what do Zimbabweans want? Trying to see the world from the other side. And I guess that's a key part of diplomacy. And I have to say, I learned that by sitting in, by working and living in Suswe.
In Suswe, right. So maybe just tell us, what does it mean, to you personally, to return to Zimbabwe decades later, now as His Majesty's ambassador?
I'm really proud to be able to represent my country. It's a real honor to be an ambassador anywhere, but I don't think I'm ever going to have a job as good as this one. I'm 51, 52. I've got another 15, 16, 20 years left of my working career, but I'm never going to have a job in a place that I care so much about. Obviously, I'm British and I represent the UK, and that's important. But also, I can't imagine wherever I go next, having a job that I have such a connection with the country too. So I think it's a double honor to be not only to be an ambassador, but also to be in Zimbabwe and with so many fantastic people. So it's great.
Amazing. So now let's talk about the UK presence and initiatives in Zimbabwe. Ambassador, you recently spoke about the opening of the new UK visa center in Bulawayo, calling it a milestone that will not only make travel more accessible for people in the southern region, but also open doors for trade, tourism, and investment while strengthening people-to-people ties. Can you just share maybe with us why this move is so significant for the future of UK-Zimbabwe relations?
Well, there's so much in connection between our people, between British people and Zimbabweans, and one of the key part of that is people being able to travel between the two countries. And so obviously Zimbabweans wanting to visit the United Kingdom, and whether that be to work, whether that be to study, whether that be visit friends and family, all of that is important. And as you say, previously we only had a visa center here in Harare, so anybody would have to come, any across the country, they'd have to come to Harare. So actually having a centre in Bulawayo is a step forward in terms of making it more inclusive, more accessible. You don't have to come to Harare. You can do that and do your visas in Bulawayo. And in a world where we are, there is so much conversation in the world today about migration, and often the stories are quite negative about migration. I think part of my job also is telling the positive stories of migration. The UK has benefited so much from migration over the years, and we have so many Zimbabweans living and working in the UK. We have so many Zimbabweans studying in the UK. About 1,000 every year go and study in UK universities. That's fantastic for them, I hope. We have scholarship programs we may talk about to encourage Zimbabweans to study in the UK, but also with maybe, I don't know the exact numbers, but maybe 500,000 Zimbabweans living and working across the UK. Family and friends, people want to go and see their family and friends. So having access to, I know there's always lots of controversy about visas and the visa process, and it's never as easy as we might want it to be. But essentially, it's a key part of facilitating that travel.
Talking of visas, why don't you just maybe scrap the visa thing? Back then, it was not an issue. People would just travel to the UK. Am I correct? Without visas?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's a complex issue, and it's sensitive for people. I guess we do need to have controls on our borders, as does Zimbabwe, and how you manage that, and you make sure that when people are coming to the UK that they have the right paperwork, that they have the ability, they have somewhere to stay, they have the details of a job or education. So the visa process is to make sure that people have everything in place to come to the UK. Because
but before, people were going to the UK without visas.
Well, I mean, times change. The world
relations were good then.
Well, I don't know. I think you always had to have a visa to travel to the UK. But relations, you're right. Relations. We can talk about the relationship. But relations have been difficult in the last 20 years. I mean, I think they're good again now.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that. But yes.
Are you sure they're good now?
I think they're good.
Right.
Good. Yeah. I mean, we have so much in common as two countries. Whether that be our basic level of our language, whether that be our football teams we support, whether that be and we shouldn't gloss over the challenge and difficulty of our history. We have a really difficult history all the way back into the early colonial times, through UDI under the Rhodesian government, through independence.
Yes.
Very difficult, complex relationship at times, but there's strong relationship too. And obviously, I think perhaps, well, we can talk a bit, but obviously at independence we were, when the king, well, he wasn't king then, but when the king came to Zimbabwe to celebrate Zimbabwe's independence, that was a key turning point in the relationship, and it was, I think it was very strong. Obviously, in the 2000s, things got difficult, and it's no secret the tension between our two countries. But throughout that, I think our people have been strongly connected. I mean, there was a government-to-government tension in the 2000s for sure, but still, people have been. The connection between individuals, between us as human beings, as family members, as people, and my job and my predecessor's job in the last few years has been to try to rebuild that normal relationship, and I think we're kind of there.
Do you think you are achieving the goal?
Well, your viewers and listeners will be the judge. Will be the judge of me, and the government will be the judge. It's not. It's hard for me to mark my own homework.
Okay.
But I think we are there. I think we've built a level of respect and understanding between our governments again that wasn't there in the 2000s. Things were so difficult. I mean, I was watching from afar. I wasn't here, but things were so difficult, and there was so little trust between our two governments and our two countries, essentially, after during the 2000s. And that just clouded everything, and it meant that people thought there was lots of views about whether. What our objectives were, why was the UK here, what's the UK? And I think we've been really working really hard to try to build a sense of look, we're together. We're together. We have challenges, of course, but we have a level of understanding and a level of respect for each other that now means that we can have the conversations. And we had our I mean, it's a sort of. It's a diplomatic act, but we had our minister, Lord Collins, come in June, And that was the first ministerial visit we've had to Zimbabwe for something like 8 years. And he met with His Excellency the President, and he met with the Foreign Minister, and I think that again shows this sort of intent. And now we've got Zimbabwean government officials traveling to the UK. We got British officials traveling here. We had our chief government scientific advisor here last week. The more interaction we have, I think there was the Zimbabwe Minister for Higher Education is in London in the UK this weekend. So we're traveling between the countries, we're talking to each other. I think the level of kind of respect and understanding is there.
Things are changing now.
I think it's there. I think it's there.
Yeah.
Now we've got to go. We obviously we need to achieve things together. The world is complicated. I think my view is that the challenges the world face, you can't tackle them on your own.
True.
You can't. One country is not going to solve climate change. But together we can make progress, and that's what I think diplomacy is about. And I think that's what the UK and Zimbabwe. Let's find a way to focus on all those positives of our history, and let's find a way to kind of look forward to the future and how we make the most of it.
Ambassador, at the ZITF 2025 in Bulawayo, you mentioned that the UK is committed to strengthening bilateral trade and investment with Zimbabwe. Can you just share what specific areas or sectors the UK is focusing on, and how ordinary Zimbabweans and business might benefit from these opportunities?
I think first of all, I think trade and investment is it's a kind of middle of the Venn diagram, if I can, between what Zimbabwe wants and what the UK wants. We want to be able to grow our economies because growing our economies means jobs. It means that we can provide for our citizens. I think if you're a Zimbabwean, you want a job. If you're a British person, you want a job. We have this. We share that. So promoting trade and investment is two-way between our countries is absolutely for me is a kind of key priority. Making sure that we can make the most of those mutual, and they have to be respectful. Again, it's not about us coming in and taking things, or it's about us finding ways to invest. That is what Zimbabwe wants, and obviously we also want to attract Zimbabwe investment in the UK too. We love it when Zimbabweans invest in Britain. So it's a dual objective for us. The main ZITF is a great opportunity to showcase that. We've built a portfolio of investments. Our main sectors, or the main areas that we think, and talking to Zimbabwean colleagues, where our companies can have the most value is in the agriculture sector. I think everybody knows about Zimbabwe's sort of amazing agriculture potential, and particularly in the high value exports. So I was talking last night about with someone who is aggregating from communal farmers. So communal farmers growing peas. And then they come together and they buy the peas from the communal farmer, and then they're exporting them to the UK. And that's amazing. So a communal farmer is getting their food onto the table of a UK consumer. That's bringing foreign currency back to Zimbabwe. It's creating jobs for people. In fact, so agriculture is a real key opportunity. And we hear also about blueberries and all sorts of other products. The second area is renewable energy, because we've got lots of expertise in the UK, and Zimbabwe definitely needs energy. And so, particularly I went to see in Manicaland, I went to see a UK, it's a Zimbabwean company it's called Nyangani Renewables, and there's a hydro dam on the Pungwe River, and so they are generating power for Manicaland, and there's all the equipment is British turbines and generators to provide clean energy for, I can't remember exactly, but a significant chunk of Manicaland's energy needs. So that's really great to see. But obviously solar is another opportunity, and we're in the final stages of negotiating a big solar investment. And then the third area is kind of mining, but there's lots of controversy about mining too.
Yeah, mining is very controversial.
And we need to make sure that British companies coming in are complying with standards, are supporting companies, supporting communities. I went to see a British mine down in Gwanda. Yeah, a gold mine. I was 1,200 meters below ground in a cage, like in a metal cage.
Were you not scared?
I was quite scared.
I was
scary.
Quite scared.
It's quite scary that far down. But seeing how they have a kind of community dividend, and how the money then goes to the community around them, and the community.
So are they paying the community their dividends?
they get a dividend. So there's a sort of dividend of the profit that goes to a community fund.
Yes.
And then the village elders and chiefs get to decide how to use that. So that's supporting the community. And of course, there's jobs as well.
Yeah.
So again, that's a nice way of seeing how a British company can invest responsibly and in a way that supports communities. So those are kind of three key areas: kind of agriculture,
mining,
renewable, and then mining.
Yeah.
But we don't have. We're not, many countries, we have more of the sort of mining services kind of skills in the UK. We're also trying to work on where we can attract Zimbabwean investment to Britain too.
To Britain, yeah.
So we've got Nyerazzo who have invested in Britain.
What would be the opportunities or the key areas there?
Well, one of the key ones at the moment is, the one that we know, the big one is Nyerazzo, that they've set up for the diaspora.
Nyerazzo, yes.
So they set up in the UK.
SIP.
Right, and so they've set up for the diaspora community in the UK, so that's quite nice. They're thinking about how do I serve the diaspora, and so they've set up in the UK, and that's good.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
The UK supports a number of initiatives here in Zimbabwe. From your perspective, which UK-led projects or programs have made the most noticeable impact on communities recently? And also, why do you think they've been successful?
Oh, there's so much that we do together. So many things that we do together across the country. Some of them have been where we've used development funding. So we've come in as given money, grants, and some of them have been about investment. In many ways, we want our relationship to be not. I can be honest, not one that's defined on aid and us coming in as a foreigner with money to give. Of course, there's a part of that, and but equally, we're trying to find those kind of mutual partnerships where we can maybe using a bit of government aid money, but also trying to bring in companies and investment, because I think that's what Zimbabweans want. It's more respectful, it's more mutual, more more of a partnership. Yeah. So what have I seen recently that I think is impressive? I went to Hurungwe district, where I was seeing how we're supporting My Trees, and they're paying farmers to grow trees. So that's all about trying to.
What type of trees? Any
traditional trees, indigenous trees, because actually what's happened in Hurungwe is that there's so much tobacco being grown that many communal farmers have been obviously using the wood to cure the tobacco, and there's been a big deforestation, and so actually they've been working to what they do is an incentive scheme, and they say, look, if you've got a spare hectare, if you plant trees and keep those trees, then we will. There's a financial reward for doing that, because that's about sustaining those trees. So looking at old indigenous trees,
a good initiative, yeah.
But again, that's hopefully there can be a way that can move into the carbon credit market in the future. I was in Wedza, where we're looking at the Mobility for Africa, which is where they're bringing in a model for these. They're called the Hambas. Have you ever seen them in Dombashawa?
Which ones?
The Hamba. They're in Dombashawa. They're piloting in Dombashawa, Wedza, and Honde Valley. Okay. And they're these little electric battery not three wheelers. Vehicles. That help with that women can use.
2 miles, like scooter.
Like scooter, but they're bigger. But they're not a scooter. They're like a 4-wheeler, and they've got a tray on the back. And you can use them to get your products to farm from the field to the market. You can use them to get people to the local clinic. You can use them as a taxi service essentially, and so mainly aimed at women. And women sign up to be part of this, and they pay a small fee each day to use it, and then the battery gets recharged. So it's kind of completely green, doesn't use fuel, uses solar power. And that's enabling and empowering women to to get their product. Key to get their produce to the market, because one of the things we know about in Zimbabwe is that actually the cold chain is difficult. So if you're growing peas or actually getting them to the markets or blueberries, you need to get them there quickly. So that's so it's not a donation, but it's a kind of market oriented. It's a bit like a business model. But it's supporting women entrepreneurs. So that's a kind of interesting one to see. I've been to Lupani district, where I went to see some of the education work, and we've been through even through the difficult times, we've been supporting government education delivery, primary education, and there we have a grant mechanism. So we provide a grant to the school development committee, and they say, okay, so how do you want to improve your school? And then they use that grant to finance an improvement in the school. So that's been quite nice to see, and that supports the government. Alongside the government, obviously pays the salaries and pays for the school, but we've been coming in to help maintain and provide a kind of how do you improve the infrastructure? But it's great to work with communities, work with the village, the school development committee, and the village elders. So there's kind of lots of actually one more. I was in Hakwata in Chiredzi. Not so long ago, seeing how we've worked with the Rural Electrification Fund, so work with government to build a mini grid, like a solar mini grid there in Chiredzi, in Hakwata, and that's been great because you see it's a solar powered. And then when we were there, we met. I met a guy who was a welder who'd moved to South Africa. But he'd heard that there was now Zesa back in his community. He's come back. He set up a business. He's doing a welding job. Back in Hakwata. And that's great. So again, another example of actually that's how do you create growth and opportunities in rural areas. I haven't been yet. I want to go. That program is doing something in Binga too, so I'm looking forward to going and seeing
in Binga as well.
Binga on the kind of lakeside.
I think Binga is on the rise as well in terms of development. It's developing really well, Binga.
Yep.
There were talks of a beach.
I hear there's a beach there. Yeah, I haven't been yet, but I have been. I've been to Mbezi, but I haven't been to Binga yet. But I hear so that's actually it's a community water project. So we have some of these things where we finance them as a foreign as a development project. Like the one in Hakwata, but like in Binga. But also, I think, as you say, moving towards these kind of partnerships where they're more respect, where we're actually working. And so, what for me, you asked what makes them good. I think what makes them good is when actually you see the kind of mutual learning. Actually, it's not about a relationship or a sort of tilted relationship of somebody coming in and giving. It's actually us learning together,
50-50.
working together. 50-50. I think that's a good way of thinking about how we do.
Now let's talk about the diaspora and the youth engagement. Ambassador, you were the keynote speaker at the Zimbabwe Achievers Awards Diaspora Forum in August 2025. Where you highlighted the important role of the diaspora in promoting development, trade, investment, and entrepreneurship between Zimbabwe and the UK. How do you see Zimbabweans living abroad contributing to these efforts, and what opportunities exist for them to get involved?
I think it was great. It was a great honor to be on the Zim Achievers Award day, and I think you interviewed Conrad.
Conrad.
Who's done a great job kind of profiling that. I think in my job, part of trying to amplify the role of the diaspora from sometimes I think people tell quite a negative story of Zimbabweans going to the UK. Some Zimbabweans do very difficult jobs. Sure, whether you be a care worker, those are tough jobs, and we really respect and value their contribution. There's no question about that. But there are also Zimbabweans doing really other really incredible, innovative jobs as well. I met. I do a podcast, we can telecom with where we're interviewing. I'm not as professional as you, Ola, but where we interview Zimbabweans in the UK making a real contribution to our society. And I interviewed a racetrack engineer working on Formula One, or a rocket scientist designing fuel cells for space expeditions.
Wow,
Zimbabweans. An entrepreneur making who's designed a sadza cooker, which I've just bought one actually
in the UK.
Yeah, but she's designed it in the UK, and so if you're busy, you've got a busy job in the UK,
you can cook sadza for you,
and you can put your meal and your water, and then you can come home and it's ready. Sadza's ready for you.
That's
because
amazing.
you've got a busy life and you've got you're working shifts, and you can't spend the time, but actually you can still eat sadza. I just bought one from her.
Have you ever used it?
Yeah, I've used it. I used it last Monday. It made perfect. I put Gio rather than the more healthy mini meal, but it made it perfect. Absolutely perfect. So. So now for me, because if I try and cook sadza, I'm afraid I make a kind of bachelor sadza, a bit lumpy. And my wife has never learned to make sadza, so between us, but the sadza maker.
But you love sadza.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So the serious point is that you've got Caroline Gundu who's designed this, and is selling it. I think they've now just about to start selling it here in Pick and Pay. I think, but the point I'm trying to make is not to promote her particular her innovation, but to say there are Zimbabweans making a really important contribution to the UK, and we value that, and I think it's been really nice to amplify that, particularly in a world when migration is such a sensitive issue at the moment globally. But when it's done properly and legally, then actually, Zimbabweans, and of course, what the Zim Achievers Award was also doing was profiling the significant contributions Zimbabweans make back home. Yeah. And we know that, the official figures, about $3 billion, about 10% of GDP is being sent home from the UK, from South Africa, and remittances, South Africa, the UK, Australia, Canada, etc. Yeah. And that makes a massive contribution back to Zimbabwe. And you see it in rural areas. You see how money coming home is helping families pay for school fees, or putting a solar on their
developing
roof.
in our rural homes as well.
Exactly. So you see that, and you see that. So I think us telling that's a good So I think the Zim Achievers Award was a great opportunity just to help profile.
Why are these events like these so important? And how do they help strengthen the connections and opportunities between Zimbabweans at home and abroad?
Well, I think that because it kind of reminds us that at the core, we can talk about particular policies, or we can talk about particular issues between, or the history of our relationship between the UK and Zimbabwe. But at its core, it's there's a big foundation on our people, and ordinary people, and ordinary people who are not politicians, who are not in government. Their families doing their best to survive, making the choices for their families, and actually we've got this such strong relationship between our people. And that might be a Zimbabwean who's left and gone to live in the UK. And now they're British. They've got a British passport. They've been there for 10 years, and they're British. And they're coming back home. And actually, for me, it's interesting as an ambassador because they're now British citizens in Zimbabwe. But they're from Zimbabwe originally. So it's interesting kind of change. But I think that's it. Remembering that the core of our relationship is our people, and that's strong. And I think that's unbreakable in terms of the relationship. And I feel that personally and professionally, that profiling and amplifying those successes, because it's not a bad thing, and actually the opposite is fantastic to see these innovations and to see Zimbabweans making that contribution to Britain, but also back home. So
Ambassador, many people back home have misconceptions about Zimbabweans living in the UK, assuming they are mostly doing difficult or low-paying jobs and struggling to live well. From your perspective, Ambassador, what is the reality of the living conditions and experiences of Zimbabweans in the UK?
Well, I couldn't speak for every Zimbabwean living in the UK, because obviously my window is going to be relatively narrow in terms of who I've met. But I think, yes, there are lots of Zimbabweans who do some really difficult jobs in the UK, and particularly care workers. I think that's a really hard work if you're caring for somebody who's not your family member at the end of their life. That's an emotional job to do, and it's a difficult job to do. And you're working shifts, and you're working nights, and you're
long hours.
You're working in a city in Britain, and it's the middle of the winter. Remember, it gets dark at 4 o'clock, and you go to work in the dark, and you come home in the dark.
Yes,
that's tough.
No social life.
That's tough.
Maybe limited social life.
I mean, I don't know what. I think that's a difficult job, and it's an important job. And in our society in the UK, where we don't have the same degree of community that Zimbabwe has, families are much more separated. My parents are in their 80s. They live in a community. My brother is overseas. I'm overseas. My sister's living 5-6 hours away. It's much the nuclear family is much more spread apart in the UK. So actually care, the care, and I think for many Zimbabweans, the idea of care, of looking after someone who's not in your family is a difficult concept. And personally, I have huge admiration for the kind of way Zimbabwean families and communities work, and that kind of connection that still endures. But for those people doing it, those are difficult jobs. But I think the point about the Zim Achievers Award is also profiling how much we value that. But also, it's not all that. There are entrepreneurs, there are innovators, there's a Zimbabwean member of parliament or Zimbabwean heritage. One of our Labour MPs is Zimbabwean, so in the UK. So actually, you've got Zimbabweans doing all sorts of different things. It's not just the care work. So I can't comment on life in Britain, cost of living is hard for everybody, not just Zimbabweans in Britain at the moment.
Yeah.
That's sort of in the news. But
I saw a proposal recently. I don't know. Maybe it will be debated in Parliament or something in the UK, where it was suggesting that for one to get a citizenship in Britain, I think 10 years requirement or something like that.
Yeah, so that's changing at the moment, and I think I'm not sure the latest figures, but yes, there is. It used to be 5, and I think it's gone to 10, and that's part of how how the UK is continuing. Migration is a sensitive issue; it's an important.
And
issue
they also said you have to prove that you're a hard worker and how much you're working.
Yeah.
How do you prove?
Well, the politics of migration is so complicated right
Yeah.
now. So I think it's in, and that's not just in the UK, globally, the politics of migration and the stress and the strain that migration creates on our kind of ability to deliver public services, schooling, healthcare, etc.
Yeah.
So it's a big debate in the UK right now. But
Yeah.
I think for those who for those who have been in the UK, who have the right to remain, who have passports, they make a fantastic contribution, and we really and so I think Zim Achievers Award is a good chance just to profile that.
That's true. Ambassador, the UK's Chevening Scholarship has long been a pathway for Zimbabwean students to study in the UK and gain leadership skills. Recently, the USA suspended the Mandela Washington Fellowship for Zimbabweans, which has raised concerns about opportunities for young leaders. How does the UK see its role in supporting Zimbabwean students and the young professionals through programs like Chevening, especially in light of such developments?
Yeah, so the Chevening Scholarship Program is something we're really proud of. I think there is now an alumni of 50,000 students from around the world.
50,000?
Who've around the world? Around the world,
Okay.
not just Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Around the world. I think Zimbabwe's about 300, 350.
Okay.
And so the Chevening Scholarship is where we provide a fully funded master's degree. So we pay their fees, we pay their stipend to live, and they go to the UK and do a master's.
Wow.
And they go and do masters in. I met the last crop who left recently. They do some of them doing masters in AI or in finance or in marketing or environmental science. The only condition we say when they apply, and it's a lengthy application process, when they apply, we say you can study anything you want, anywhere you want in the UK, and we will fund it.
Yep.
But you have to be able to demonstrate how you will contribute back home.
Okay.
Because it's about building skills and building
Back home here in Zimbabwe.
Back home in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So the idea is, what is it you're going to go and do that you can then say when you come back, you're going to make a contribution to your country, because that's the kind of the offer we make.
Yes.
And I think when people people go on it, I mean, I think they realize they learn the life in Britain isn't always that easy. I think it's not all land of milk and honey sometimes.
Yeah.
I think talking to some of the returnees a few weeks ago, those who just come back, I mean they from things like we don't greet each other as nicely as Zimbabweans do when you meet each other.
Yeah. We always say Magadi Mamukase.
We don't
How
do
are
that.
you?
Yeah, we don't do that as much. I do that now when I go home and everyone looks at me thinking, why are you? And I go into the shop and I go, hey, how are you? How are things? And they kind of look at me like, why?
Exactly.
Sorry, I'm not in Zimbabwe anymore.
Yeah.
Because in Zimbabwe that is so important.
Exactly.
Right? But also they learn about, they and I think in the student body, if you're benefit from having a Zimbabwean in the group, right? So if you're studying environmental science and you've got a Zimbabwean there, that adds to the richness of the cohorts. So that's good. And that's the ones that the government funds. There are lots of other scholarship schemes that we don't fund, but they go to the UK, like the Buy It scholarships, the MasterCard, others that support Zimbabwean students go. And then there's a whole bunch of students that also travel. I think we were just looking at the visa numbers, about 1,000 this have just started in the UK studying their bachelor's or master's. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think it's a nice way of. It also builds for us. It builds a network.
Say we've got someone in Cholocho there who wants to apply for that Chevening scholarship. What are the requirements?
Anyone can apply. One of the things we're trying to do is to broaden the application base. So it's not just young people from Harare, but actually making sure there's people from around the country.
Yes.
So you just follow on our social media channels on Facebook or on X or on LinkedIn, where you can see. I think the deadline. I can't remember when the deadline is, whether it's just passed or for this year, or I think it's just
7 October.
7 October.
Oh,
there you go. So the deadline is about to come in the next week for next year. And we really encourage people to apply for it because it's a great opportunity. And then when they come back, the idea is that there's a network of about 300 or so in Zimbabwe who've gone and studied in the UK. I was in the government. I was in a ministry meet yesterday, and I was just talking about we're just doing a courtesy call, and the PS. Said, I studied in Manchester, and you find everywhere, you find Zimbabweans who studied in the UK.
In the UK, yeah.
I mean, he supports the wrong football team, but that's okay.
So the Shifting Scholarship has supported many Zimbabwean leaders over the years. So what advice would you give to young Zimbabweans who aspire to apply? Your advice?
Don't self-censor. Don't think you're not good enough. Go for it. Apply. I mean, I think some people might think, I can't go to the UK, or I can't afford it, or they won't select me.
Yeah.
Go for it. It's fully funded. It's we fund the cost of the course, and we give a stipend to help pay with food and living, everything. So anybody can apply.
Yeah.
Go for it. Is my message.
Great. So let's talk about the sanctions and political economic relations. Ambassador, sanctions have long been a point of contention in UK-Zimbabwe relations. Critics argue that they disproportionately affect ordinary Zimbabweans while failing to achieve their intended political objectives. How does the UK respond to these criticism, and what steps are being taken to ensure that the measures target the intended actors without harming the broader population?
I'm glad you asked this question. It's a tough one, huh? It's a tough question, and it's a subject of much conversation in Zimbabwe. So, I mean, from the start, the first thing to say is that in May this year, we removed all the individual sanctions that we had. So they've gone. So actually, there is the only thing we have now is, for the UK-Zimbabwe sanctions regime, is an arms embargo, which means that we can't supply weapons to Zimbabwe. But there are no more. We took away the last. There were 4 individuals and 1 business that were sanctioned, and then in May we removed them. Okay, so they're gone, finished.
They're gone now.
Yeah, pera.
Yeah, fair.
So finished. And so the other thing. I mean, back a bit. I think there was quite a lot of. It was a very sensitive issue. There's quite a lot of propaganda about sanctions, I'll be honest and say, and quite a lot of blaming sanctions for economic situation in Zimbabwe. And our view always was, look, there were 4 people who couldn't get a visa to go to the UK, who couldn't travel to the UK, who couldn't have a bank account in the UK. But that was it.
Only
16 million people can apply for a visa, can do business.
So you are saying those sanctions were not affecting ordinary Zimbabweans?
That is my view. I know that other people have a different view. Nonetheless, it's clear that the sanctions regime was, and those individual sanctions were a barrier in the kind of ability in the relationship we had, and that the messaging from government essentially and the propaganda about sanctions meant that it was very difficult, and so we removed those remaining sanctions as an act of, actually, this is an act of good faith, and saying,
maybe because it was like a bundle, like the UK sanction, the EU,
and it gets mixed up. Yeah, it gets mixed up between exactly. And I mean, it's not for me to comment on Zedera, of course, but often people confuse Zedera with sanctions, and they're different things. Is my view. But nonetheless, what we did is we removed those sanctions in May, and that was just in advance of our Africa minister coming and meeting His Excellency and talking about UK relations. And for me, that was a step in another step forward in us having a normal relationship. So there's nothing left to be a barrier.
Okay.
Apart from the fact that the UK government is not allowed to sell, or UK companies are not allowed to sell arms.
Weapons.
But I don't think that affects the Zimbabwean economy. That's just
Okay. So looking ahead, there is growing debate about these, necessity and effectiveness of sanctions. Does the UK have a clear strategy or timeline for, reviewing or adjusting these measures in line with the Zimbabwe's political and economic developments? How does the UK balance pressure for reform, with the need to support ordinary Zimbabweans?
So we're absolutely committed. I mean, first of all, there's no more plan because there's no more sanctions.
There are more sanctions, more sanctions,
So those individuals are no longer sanctioned, and so there is a conversation for Zimbabwe to continue to have with other nations about sanctions regimes, etc. But for us, that is, the fact that we've taken those individuals off the list means that there's no barrier. But yes, so I hope that gives us the opportunity then to really not have the noise of sanctions get in the way of having a proper partnership in Zimbabwe, which is about supporting, as we talked about, our trade and investment is about supporting Zimbabweans, and actually when you see or hear about how communal farmers are able to, the example I use, are able to grow their peas, sell them to an aggregator, and then they get exported to the UK and they gain foreign currency. Yeah. And you think, okay, that's a really great model of, and they could do that before, but they can still do it now. The most important thing is, and for Zimbabweans, is that actually I didn't mention this about the trade and investment, is that we have taken away, also, we have no barriers to trading with the UK. So there's no tariffs, which is important in a world where lots of people are talking about tariffs. There are no tariffs on exporting to the UK. There are no quotas. There's no limitations. If you want to export to the UK, you can. Zero tariff, zero quota. Sadly, though, Ola, one of the things I learned last night is that still many Zimbabwean companies are not making most of that. There's something like about $1.4 million of Zimbabwean exports to the UK where they're still paying the tariffs. And they don't have to. And so our job, we have a...
Oh, they're still paying?
Yeah, because
they're not supposed to.
They're not supposed to. And actually our job is what I'm trying to do is communicate in our trade team, say, you need to make most of the EPA, the Economic Partnership Agreement. There's a bunch of things you need to do, and helping educate exporters. So we've got a colleague in town this week who's doing us workshops today to exporters make sure they know how to make the most of that duty-free, quota-free, because they shouldn't be paying any tariffs. So again, that's a sort of,
guys, this is new information for you.
Don't pay tariffs.
Don't pay tariffs.
Don't pay tariffs to you export to the UK. So I think then of course on top of that we've had decades of UK aid money supporting health and education. Which is all targeted at ordinary Zimbabweans, and we've always been and always will continue to support the relationship between the two.
Great. Ambassador, given the history between the UK and Zimbabwe, many people are curious about where things stand today. I know you've mentioned it before, but how would you describe the UK's relationship with Zimbabwe now, both politically and economically?
I think we've done, it's a great question. I mean, we touched a bit earlier, but I think we've done everything we can to have a normal, respectful partnership between the UK and Zimbabwe. We've, from my perspective, we've really focused on trade and investment. We've taken away the tariffs on the economic side. We've taken away the sanctions, which was allegedly an economic, but also definitely had a political impact. We've had ministers visit to and fro the country. Our African minister here in June, to say, multitude of Zimbabwean ministers going to the UK and meeting counterparts. We are now able to talk to most of the government in the sense that we have a conversation. We can sit across the table and we can talk about what we agree with and we can talk about what we disagree with. And that's how I think countries should work diplomatically. They should work. And there will be things that the government of Zimbabwe do not like about the UK policy.
The UK,
fine. That's okay. And there'll be things that we are not so happy with either. Fine.
But so far, what are you not happy with?
But what we say is, what we're trying to say is that we're not going to do that we're not going to broadcast in public.
The areas are not happy
because we want to be respectful. And actually, and I think about how it would work in a relationship elsewhere in the world. Are you going to see the British government comment publicly on France and what it does? No, you don't hear that. They do it behind closed doors. They talk about it in private, respectfully, and that's the kind of relationship that I want us to have. Is a relationship where we do it respectfully. We're honest about things we disagree with. There'll be things, that's for sure. And there'll be things that Zimbabwe are unhappy with us about, for sure, right?
Exactly.
But that's okay. But I'd rather hear that and rather than reading it in the newspaper or hearing it on social media. Have the conversation. And I think that's a respectful way for us to work. And that's what I think we are in a place where we've built the relationship that we need together. I think we now I've probably spent most of my first 2 years here thinking, how do I help? How do I play a part in building that relationship? And now I think, okay, we now have that relationship. How do I use that relationship to advance our mutual interests on trade and investment, on climate negotiations, coming up to, on the various things that matter to us all? How do I use that relationship? And how does the government of Zimbabwe use that relationship too? And that's my agenda for the rest of my time here.
Great. Let's talk about the amazing in Zimbabwe life. Ambassador, we've noticed that you are always on the road, exploring different corners of Zimbabwe, from towns to the countryside. Out of all the places you have visited so far, which one has really captured your heart? And if you were to build a rural home here in Zimbabwe, where would it be?
Ola, I can't answer that question.
Yeah.
I'm going to upset people if I choose an area, and then people will be, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't choose that. I'll tell you what, I've loved traveling around Zimbabwe, and I've loved the opportunity, and one of the great privileges and honors of this job is to try to connect, not just in Harare, but across the country, and to understand the country and learn about it. And I've got on Google Maps, I might put it on social media soon. I've got every time I go somewhere, or I like somewhere I've enjoyed being, I save it. I put a pin on the map.
On the map.
You get a little yellow star on Google Maps.
Oh yes, yeah.
And it's full. My map of Zimbabwe is full.
Oh, it's full now.
It's full.
Yellow pins everywhere.
Everywhere. Apart from, and there's a bit of a problem, so maybe you and your listeners can help me. There's a bit of a gap in the middle of Zimbabwe. I've got lots of dots and maps around, from kind of Zambezi through the Eastern Highlands, down through Chiredzi, down to Bayet Bridge, a little bit in Bulawayo up to Vic Falls and Hwangi. And there's a bit in the middle, the kind of Midlands bit, that I've got a bit of a gap. There's a sort of missing bit on my map, so I need to go to those places.
You've been to Masvingo, right?
I've been to Masvingo, yes.
Yeah, Rusape, you've been there.
Yeah, it's more the kind of Kwekwe, Kadoma.
Yes.
That area.
Chegutu. You've been there?
I passed through, but I haven't spent time. So maybe if anybody when we're on social media can say,
Chegutu is a mining town as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, busy mining there.
So I need to kind of broaden I need to fill that gap in and get there and meet some people, meet people there. But no, I mean I've obviously my heart, I'm sorry, I'm going to offend a few people, but my heart is still, still love the kind of Marewa, Motoko, Mudzi road.
You spent much time there.
And I spent time there, so it's where I sort of started. I go, the weekends, I'm often seen in Gomokarera, Domashara, because it's beautiful. I'm a runner, so I go there running and walking.
Okay.
And it's close to town, and you have those beautiful views of the Gomos and the beautiful mountains, which so I kind of spend a bit of time there. But I mean,
you go alone? With your family? You go with your family?
Yeah, with my family, or on my own, or with friends. Sometimes I kind of just are training there. But I've loved the Eastern Highlands, of course. I've loved going to the kind of wild wilderness of Massaviland North. But yeah, I mean, building. I don't think I'm going to be able to build a rural home, but I think it's. I should say my rural home is actually in the north of Scotland, so that's kind of where my home is.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, no, there's some fantastic places, and it's been a great opportunity to not only travel as a tourist, because there's a bit about traveling on my holidays, because my children are at school in the UK. I don't get to see them that often, so then when they come to Zimbabwe, I take my holidays here with them, so we travel. So we can be kind of like tourists when we're here.
Okay.
But obviously for work also, I've tried to travel around, it's been, to meet people, because you've got to, I think one of the key things about being in my position as an ambassador is trying to keep kind of grounded. I have a car with the Union Jack, the flag on the front, and people call me Your Excellency, and I'm just Pete. I'm a guy doing his job as best he can do his job, as we all are. But sometimes in a kind of protocol environment, you could fall into the trap of thinking you're excellent. If people keep saying Your Excellency, you can fall into that trap. So actually trying to be grounded and kind of keep connected to. I mean, I am not, I'm not Zimbabwean, and I'm never going to understand everything about being Zimbabwean, but I can at least try to kind of retain a bit of the humidity and a bit of the kind of groundedness that I think I started when I kind of, taking the bus to Mudzi 33 years ago. So yeah, I think that's kind of what I try to do.
Great, Ambassador. I saw that video of you, on that on the farm using duri and mutswi.
Panezia panedovi.
Yeah, panezia panedovi. Yeah, tell me about that. What inspired you to try that?
That was fun. So there's a great I'll give a quick shout out, but Joe Hussein, who's an ex radio DJ, Radio 2, I think was it? And now he works for the UK-Zimbabwe in the UK. He's been there for many years, but he runs this food competition. Him and a few friends run this food competition where they kind of take photos of food and then they judge it on social media.
King J.
King J.
Yeah, I know King J. Yes.
So he first approached me slightly randomly saying, would I participate? And the year before. And I said, yeah, absolutely, we can do it. So we did an Ambassadors Cook-Off Challenge last year where we made hyperizzi. And then, and it was fun because it's just a fun way to spend a weekend and just show that, and we got a group of ambassadors to do it. And so this year we all had to make chicken, Roadrunner chicken with peanut butter rice.
Okay.
And so that's why we had it. The competition he set was.
He said, I think he calls it Fulo something.
Team Fulo.
Team Fulo. Yeah. I follow
so it's just fun. It's just and they're very clear that there's no politics. There's it's just fun and a bit of banter, and it connects the diaspora to Zimbabwe. And I know lots of journalists have done it and politicians have done it. This challenge. So we had the Ambassador Challenge. So now we've done 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
I still haven't won. So I don't know. Team Fulo judges. This year I won.
They're rigging.
No. This year I won the People's Award. But, but so yes. So I decided because I had to try and think how do it's about people can't taste your food.
Yeah.
Because you're doing it on social media, but they can see how you make it. Yeah. So I decided, we decided to make it to do it kind of in a.
But are you enjoying it?
So we made it. So we made I made my own. I roasted the peanuts. I made my own peanut butter.
Yes.
And I was amazed. I mean, I'd never made peanut butter before.
Through kujura.
Yeah.
We call it kujura.
Kujura.
Oh yeah. Using mutswi in duri.
Yeah.
Mutswi is the one that big.
It was great fun, and not only it's hard work, right? It's a hard work, but also I was just amazed. Sorry, but you Zimbabweans, know this, but for me as a foreigner, that if you could just have there's nothing else in it, just peanuts, and you just, you have to roast them, and then you have to get rid of the husks, and then you just grind it. And then it tastes like the best peanut butter you've ever tasted. Yeah. Just like that. No salt, no.
That's how our grandmothers used to do.
That's how. That's how grandmothers made. So I've never made it before. So and then when you put it in the rice, wow. So yeah, that was fun. But again, it just shows that. I mean, it was fun, but it was just trying to show that. Yeah. By participating, I think is just trying to show that we are as ambassadors, and there were many of us who did it. That we're also kind of human beings. We're also human beings, and we all drive around, and we, I don't know what the collective noun for ambassadors is, but we travel around with our flags and our suits and our Your Excellencies. But actually, we're all ordinary people,
casual.
So let's have a bit of fun as well, and you get lots of people. There's quite a lot of banter around that, and social media. Can be quite toxic these days. So quite refreshing to have
something new.
And I had that moment where I got in the combi in Mushika.
Well, I saw that. Yeah.
And that was fun. Although I got into real trouble with my security team.
Why?
Because I didn't ask them permission. And so I went to Hatcliffe.
They were worried for you.
I bought my jongwe. Yes. And all my vegetables and peanuts and everything. got in the combi, did that little video, and then I got back and they're like, what were you doing? So yeah, but it was worth it because now actually, and now that's one of the things that you can, it was fun at the time, and it was engaging, and I think it's a way of engaging with the audiences in a different way as an ambassador. Yeah. But also I can be in a strange part. I can be in a car park in where was I? I was in a car. I was parking my car in Kariba, and someone comes up to me and says, Ambassador Jongwe, Shika.
Ambassador Jongwe.
So they kind of, someone was like, I was sitting at the Zim Achievers Award, and the deputy minister next to me said, I saw you on Facebook in a combi with a chicken. And so again, it's not serious. It's something to do on the weekend.
Exactly.
It's about a bit of fun.
Ambassador, we've seen you really embracing life in Zimbabwe. Like you said, from learning Shona expressions and participating in local traditions to shopping at the Heathcliff People's Market and even riding a combi like you said. So how has immersing yourself in the language, culture, and everyday experiences helped you connect more deeply with the Zimbabweans?
Well, personally, it makes my job more fun. Because there's a bit about being able to go to the market and be able to speak a little bit of Shona. My Shona's not very good, but it's to speak a little bit of Shona, and being able to, a little bit of conversation. I mean, I'm never fully going to understand life for a Zimbabwean. So I'm not Zimbabwean, but so that I think I can do my job better if I'm happy and having fun, right? So there's a little bit about that, but there's a serious point too, because actually, if I understand how the country works and the reality for ordinary people, just a little bit better, 5%, 10% better, then I'm going to be 5-10% better at my job. And if my job is to represent Britain in Zimbabwe, I'm going to understand what it's like for someone I got a sense of, going and spending a bit of time chatting to the lady selling me her chicken, and I get a bit more connected. So I think it's about having fun in the job. It's about understanding the country a little bit better. And hopefully it means that people trust. I think if you can connect in that kind of way, in an emotional way with people, people trust me a bit more.
That's very true.
And if people trust me and think, actually, this guy, he's not just here representing his country, but he's here representing his country and he likes our country, then I think that opens a door or two.
From your previous interactions with Zimbabweans, do you feel like they trust you?
Well, I mean, no one's going to tell me they don't, are they? Not many people come to my face and say, I don't trust you. Sometimes I get on social media, I get a kind of, I didn't trust this guy, but I'm starting to like him or something.
How do you feel when you see those messages?
So I feel proud. Okay, that's good. Okay, it's not a popularity contest. I'm not trying to be popular. I'm not an influencer. I'm not a social media. I'm a diplomat. But if I can convince people one by one that actually our intentions are good, and that there were bad times in our history when our intentions weren't good, and I am personally deeply ashamed of some of our colonial history. But if people can see me and listen to me and take me at face value and say, actually, this guy and this embassy, so it's not just about me, I'm the guy at the top of the embassy, but I've got a whole team of people who are with me, who we work together. If this embassy is actually interested in Zimbabwe and wants the best for Zimbabwe, in our relationship with Britain, then I'm achieving. And if everyone thinks, or if conversely everyone thinks, I don't trust him, he's just part of an evil colonial kind of project, then of course I'm not going to get very far with our jobs. So my job is to, some people I'll never convince, but it's to convince as many people as possible that actually our intentions are positive, and we want to be a constructive, positive actor in Zimbabwe.
Great. Out of all moments you have had exploring Zimbabwean life, do you have a favorite memory or a story that really stuck with you? And on a related note, if your current tenure comes to an end, is there any chance you might want to extend your time here in Zimbabwe, or to continue experiencing and contributing to life in Zimbabwe?
Oh, big questions. Lots of favorite moments, both being out and about. I was on the ferry, took the ferry from Kariba to Binga, to Mbezi, and right in the middle of the ferry with my children who were teenagers, and we all jumped off the top of the ferry into the lake and swam, and then quickly before the crocodiles came, I ran this ridiculous race in the Eastern Highlands last year. It's called the Sky Run. It's a 56-kilometer race. Through the mountains, 56 kilometer, and you're running over Mountain Yangani. And coming to the finish line and feeling really, feeling the joy of being amazing, or being in, going back to, I passed through Suswe on my way to Rushinga, and just kind of embracing, kind of being a little bit closer to kind of the life I remember 30 years ago. All of these are highlight moments, you know, personal moments with my family or moments with Zimbabweans.
Yes.
The cooking, the being the combi, you know, they're great things every day. Actually, really good. We had Linda Muzenda, who's a Zimbabwean living in the UK.
The
and
UK,
she
yeah.
came back
Linda,
and she sang at our, she sang the national anthem at our kind of annual national day.
Oh.
And that was kind of spine tingling to see a Zimbabwean who's gone to the UK. She's an education carer, an incredible singer, singing our national anthem, for us in front
Your
of
national anthem.
our national anthem.
Oh yeah.
And the Zimbabwean anthem as well. But you know, my hair in the back of my neck sort of raised as a spine tingling moment as her singing the national anthem. So things like that, fantastic.
Yeah.
Your second question, what was that? About would I settle when I made it? Well, I mean, I have to be honest that I'm a British civil servant, and I'm proud to serve my country, and I'm still youngish. I've still got a few years left in my career. So I will no doubt. When my tenure finishes here, I'll look to make a contribution elsewhere, either back at home or as a diplomat elsewhere. So there's many years. I hope I've got many years of a career left. So I'm not thinking about
if not Zimbabwe, which other country do you want to serve in?
Well, it's not as easy. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of places to. There's lots of places I'm interested in going, but obviously it depends on, you know, our world is a market, so they advertise jobs, and it depends on when your tenure comes to an end and what's available at the time.
Yes.
So it's too early to say. I'm still focused on Zimbabwe right now. But yeah, no, my career is in making a contribution to the UK and the countries in which I'm at. Right now it's Zimbabwe, and that's my focus today. So no plans to settle in Zimbabwe.
No plans. Okay. Ambassador, Zimbabwe is known for its incredible music, from Sungura, Zindanzo, and gospel. We've got Zim hip hop as well. What kind of Zimbabwean music do you enjoy listening to, and do you have any favorite artists or songs so far?
Well, you know, my entire life, really, since a young man, has been shaped by Zimbabwean music.
Okay.
I've had it playing in it was on a tape in those days, on a cassette tape.
Yes.
And then onto a CD, and then onto Spotify.
Yes.
And Zimbabwean music from the 90s has followed me. I was, you know, living in Bangladesh, and I was playing Leonard Jakarta. I was, you know, living in Afghanistan in Helmand province, basically a kind of conflict zone, listening to Andy Brown, so it's been with me. Even in my wedding, I got married. I met my wife and we got married, and at my wedding we played there was music played. We had played Mutukudzi, and so Zimbabwean music has always been.
Which song? You remember?
I think it was Neria.
Yeah. Wow. On a wedding.
I think it was. Yeah. No, I don't think the guests necessarily understood the nuance of what Neria is about, because it's actually quite a tragic.
It's an emotional song.
An emotional song.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid, and I've tried, but I'm still probably showing my age. I'm still a kind of Sungura fan, and I'm still kind of stuck on not the old, but the musicians from the 90s, the Leonard Jakarta, Leonard Dembo, Andy Brown, those guys. And I remember vividly. I still remember. Slightly. I remember standing late at night on a Friday outside we had two bottle stores in Susway, one on the main road and one up in the hill. And the one up in the hill was a bit more remote and a bit more quiet. I remember sitting on the terrace with my friends and colleagues, listening to Leonard Jakarta, Zombe Huru. Yeah. I remember listening to that, and I remember looking at the stars.
Yes.
There's those. I guess that era of Jakarta is I've yet to meet him. I'd love to meet. I know he's.
I can arrange.
Can you arrange?
Yeah, I can. I can arrange for you.
And I know he doesn't play anymore, but he was. And I remember there was a place in.
He's still playing though.
There's a place in town, wasn't there? I can't remember the place. When I came to Harare, there was a place on 1st or 2nd Street that used to play on a Friday. There would be Olumatkusi playing or Jakarta playing.
Isn't that Jazz 105?
I can't remember what it was called.
Should be Jazz 105.
But I went to see Olumatkusi play in London, and this is a good story, because anyone who's seen Zimbabwean artists in Zimbabwe, I think if you're a Zimbabwean artist back in the day playing in London. You know, you wouldn't go to a small club like you might do here, because you're trying to maximize your revenue. Right? It makes sense. You're there, and you've got only nothing. So they played in the Barbican, which is in London, it's a theatre, and it's a sit-down theatre
Okay.
with seats on a big stage at the end. And I went there to watch Oliver Mtukudzi, and half of Zimbabwe was there. All the Zimbabweans in London were there because
they loved
to see him. And you could see everybody literally trying, because Mtukudzi's music's not to sit down and watch. Right? It's music to dance to. Right? And so you could see everybody sitting there kind of, this is a bit weird. Why are we sitting down? And they're sitting in rows. Classic British.
We want to dance.
We want to dance. And so then somebody kind of broke free and then was down at the front.
Yes.
And then everybody piled in and was trying to down at the front.
Exactly.
But, the stewards, the organisers, the Barbican were trying to get everyone to sit back down again. But these guys, I haven't seen, I left home 5 years ago. I miss this music.
Yes,
I want to dance. And they couldn't, the organisers couldn't get everyone to sit back down because it was in one of those big theatres with seats.
Exactly.
I've seen, and I think I saw, I saw Matt Fumo in London as well, maybe similar thing. I'm afraid I haven't quite got it. I haven't quite got into the Zim dance or the modern music. Yeah. I tried. I went to Rusapi. To watch Ja Preza and Alec Macheso play. But I didn't stay the whole time. So I saw Ja Preza, which was fantastic.
Yes.
It was in the kind of stadium in Rusapi town. But it was very late, and I was probably.
So you're not able to dance Borodale?
I think I should try, but I can't do the Borodale. No, not properly. I don't think there's a cliche about white people being and dancing. And
exactly.
I think I fall for that trap.
Someone told me that your phone was stolen there at Rusape.
That's true. Yeah, sadly, I was probably the only. I was probably the only white guy in this crowd.
Oh,
and
they spotted you.
And I was having fun and watching Ja Preza play.
Yes.
And, the evening.
You started dancing like this.
I started.
In Zimbabwe, don't play, don't dance like this. If you start doing this, they will be dealing with your pocket there.
And I don't know what happened. But anyway,
so
I lost my...
So at least the other head is the pocket.
I realised that my phone went... Because what I'd gone is I'd driven there to see it and to see them because I was trying to find... there's a longer story, actually.
Yeah.
I wanted to see Alan Macheso.
Yes.
So... if it was team we were watching, I was desperate to go and see. And I drove on the Friday night. I went up to Shamba to try and see him because he was playing in Shamba.
Yeah.
I've never told anyone this story, not even my wife.
Yeah.
I got there and I thought, well, where am I going to stay tonight? Because everyone says that he starts at 1 o'clock and goes to Pungwe.
Yes.
Where am I going to sleep in Shamba?
Yeah.
And I thought maybe I could try and camp somewhere or. And I got into Shamba and I looked around and thought, there's nowhere I could stay. Nowhere I could stay. So I quit and I feel ashamed that I gave up and went back to Harare because I was like, I can't stay. So I went back to Harare. So I got back to Harare feeling...
Without meeting Macheso?
No, I didn't see.
Oh.
I didn't even see it start because I got there and it was 4 or 5. I left work and I got there and I was like, I need to find somewhere to... I said, but where am I going to stay that's going to be that I'm allowed to, I'm going to not get into trouble for staying. And so I quit and I went back to town and I thought, and I got to town, I felt so bad for myself. So I felt so ashamed of myself that I used to go and stay in places and, so the next day I saw on social media that he was playing in Rusapi. So, I mean, it cost me, so I phoned up a guy. I thought, actually, there's a little guest house I can stay in Rusapi. So I went to Rusapi, parked my car, so put my stuff there. Said I'm going to stay here. Go down to the stadium.
Vengere Stadium. Yeah.
Vengere Stadium. Went down. Obviously, I arrived like 5 hours too early because nothing had started. So it was great. I had a nice chat. So I had to chat to some teachers and young people around. Went to the thing. It was late. My phone was stolen. That's my fault for being
with
casual.
your important contacts there.
Yeah, well, with my with an embassy phone. And, oh no. So I thought, oh god, I'm going to get in trouble for this. And actually, I thought, you know what, I probably shouldn't be in a field in Vengere Stadium on my own with no phone. Late at night. So I went back to the guest house and actually I could hear Macheso because I was in a guest house up the hill
close.
And he's loud. So I could hear Macheso in the distance, but I wasn't in the stadium. So my dream is still to get to a Macheso concert and to see him. So.
Have you ever had that time maybe to interact with him? Not yet.
Not yet. No. So,
I can still arrange it. I will arrange it. So I will just talk to your team here and make sure that you get to meet Macheso.
Okay.
Jakarta. Manchester, who else?
That's it. My
Those two.
dreams will be settled. And I can,
Wow, I'll make it come true. I'll definitely make it come true. So let's talk about the arts and culture. The British Council runs several arts and culture programs here in Zimbabwe, like the Creative DNA Accelerator for fashion and fashion designers, scripts and bars supporting literature and music and other initiatives under the unique Creative Zimbabwe program. Sorry. How do these programs help local artists, and also what impact do you think cultural exchange has on UK-Zimbabwe relations?
Yeah, I mean, the British Council have always played a really important role in Zimbabwe. I mean, do you remember the Haifa Days, the Harare International Festival of the Arts?
Yeah.
You know, that was a big thing in the 90s and 2000s. I think till recently, the British Council played an important role in that. And sort of supporting music, supporting the creative industries. I can't quite remember, because our director of the council told me the other day, but I've forgotten it. But the value that the creative industries, 124 billion in the UK of creative industries. So it's a huge part of our economy. And so the idea that if we can support the creative industries in Zimbabwe, that can be a real engine for growth, particularly given the sort of fantastic cultural, music we've been talking about. Opportunity. I mean, Zimbabwe music is known around the world. Even in Afghanistan, people know, because I was playing it in Helmand province. But so the British Council is really working to continue to support the creative industries, and that's a good thing for Zimbabwe. But of course, the exchange is important too, and I think that the ability to kind of find opportunities for kind of cultural exchange is once again another example of the kind of soft power connections. You don't need big hard politics. Actually, it's about people. It's about the fun things that people enjoy doing. We had a group of fashion designers in London for London Fashion Week, Zimbabwean fashion designers in London for London Fashion Week, displaying what they were doing, hopefully learning something and sharing something too, coming back to Zimbabwe. That was a great opportunity. I know that there's the Jacaranda Festival this weekend, and I think the British Council are part of sponsoring that as a way of supporting talent.
You're actually part of that.
The British Council is, yes. Supporting and a way to showcase talent. So I think it's about two things. The reason that the council is so active is on that side is one is because it's about it could be really important for the Zimbabwean economy, and Zimbabweans want to grow the economy, and that creates jobs. And two is that it's a great way of exchanging ideas and that kind of people to people connection, and that we talk about soft power, but it's the kind of the cultural connections that if you're a Zimbabwean living in Scotland, or if you're a British person living in Bulawayo, they're common themes.
Great. How do you see right now Zimbabwe economically? What's your take on Zimbabwe's economy right now?
I mean, you'd have to talk to the Minister of Finance and the Reserve Bank Governor to get the full details of the economy.
Your own, perspective.
My perspective is that, on a serious point, is that one of the key challenges to the Zimbabwean economy is the fact that it's been out of the international financial system for so long. Zimbabwe stopped paying its arrears to the World Bank and the African Development Bank in 1999, I think. And since then, it hasn't had access to that kind of finance. So that trickles down to the whole economy, that there isn't necessarily much access to credit, because that affects the credit rating. And so Zimbabwe has, something like $22 billion of debt. Some of that's domestic debt, and that's for Zimbabwe. That's something, and some of that's international debt. And obviously that's where we come in as a creditor. So, some of that's from the UK, some of that's from the international system, from the World Bank or the African Development Bank. And as a result of that, Zimbabwe, if it wants to borrow money, has to go to other places to borrow money, and that's expensive. Interest rates are high, so Zimbabwe's borrowing at 15%. Whereas a country in the neighbourhood, I don't know, Tanzania, for instance, I don't know the deal, I'm guessing, is able to borrow from the World Bank at 2% over 30 years. So it's a huge burden, that burden of debt. And Zimbabwe can't access that yet.
True.
So that's why we're in conversation with the Minister of Finance and across government in how we can resolve that, and in how we can resolve that debt. Because if we can collectively find a way to clear or restructure the current debt, particularly the multilateral debt, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, if we can find a way to restructure that, and Zimbabwe can borrow again, then you can.
It will boost the economy.
That will boost the economy,
Yeah.
because then the government can do. It can build roads, it can build dams, it can build schools, hospitals,
Yes.
with that cheaper money,
Yeah.
not having to use the current account.
Yeah.
And I think that would be transformational for the economy. So for me, that's my lens on it, is as an international lens, is how do we collaborate together with the international creditors, the other countries, so that Zimbabwe can get to a place where it's back in the international system and can access that kind of cash.
Great.
Because we know, I think everybody knows, that liquidity is a challenge in the Zimbabwean economy. I'm a diplomat, not a businessman, so I don't fully understand the business side of it. But I think you can see that in the economy that there isn't access to credit for people, and if you want to borrow to our economy in the UK, maybe we've got too much debt, but as an individual, if you want to borrow money for your house, for your car, for your life, there's much more. And so I think getting that top bit right will flow down in terms of access to credit for others. We've got some things we've been doing to try to smooth that. So we've got a recently British International Investment, which is our finance wings, is basically invested 10 million in agriculture, so it can lend money to farmers.
Yes.
So we've done things on the side, but ultimately it's that big game. The big game for Zimbabwe is if we can collectively find a way to restructure the current debt and then access that kind of finance again.
Great. Ambassador, as we wrap up our conversation today, what parting remarks or message would you like to leave for our listeners, especially young Zimbabweans and those interested in building stronger ties with the UK?
What should I say? I mean, I think, hopefully if you've got this far in our conversation, you'll understand that, our the UK's intent is a positive one, that we want to be a constructive, active partner in Zimbabwe. If you are a young person, don't hold back, get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us on social media. You can, we look at everything that comes on social media. You can get in touch. You can if you're doing something with the UK or you're interested in something with the UK, get in touch with us. Don't hold back. For ultimately, there is a formal part of my job that is about the government-to-government bit. Absolutely, we'll continue to do that. And then there's a bit that's about our everyday British people, everyday Zimbabwean people. How do we make this connection? So we're here. We're kind of want to be open and transparent and want to be as part of the conversation. So thanks for the chance.
Oh, by the way, before we conclude, there's this important question that I've been getting from people. That why is it that we still, when we are doing our visa applications, we have to submit it to South Africa, either South Africa or Kenya, Namibia? Why can't we do it here in Zimbabwe? Why can't everything be done here in Zimbabwe?
That's just a kind of global norm, that how do we do things efficiently? How do we kind of center our expertise rather than having visas done in 15 different or 56 different countries? How do we get them done in hubs so that you've got the expertise there? So it's more about efficiency and efficiency of process. So I mean, our visa process, wherever it's done, is still, there's very clear timeframes about how it's done.
Okay.
If you do it, one of the big problems, we're really keen for people to travel to the UK and, get visas. One of often the big problems for people is timing, and people, phone me up and say, or phone up the team and say, I put in a visa application yesterday and I'm traveling on Friday. You're not, it's not going to happen. I'm so sorry. You got to do it within 15 days. And if you do 15 days and you follow the process, it doesn't matter where it's done. The process is the same.
Okay.
So I think, I know that's frustrating for people. It's frustrating for me sometimes because, I would like it to be a turnaround in 2 days, of course.
Exactly.
But, we're experimenting. Having a centre in Bulawayo is good. We're experimenting with, whether there's more, faster ways of doing it. I mean, some of those, we're experimenting. Ultimately, we will move, in the future, we will move to a place where it's all digital and doesn't really matter. Ultimately, it's done through a kind of digital process. We're not quite there yet. Still, you have to have a sticker in your passport. But it will change over time.
Great. Thank you so much, Ambassador. It was such an honor to have you on our platform.
Honor to be here, genuinely. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. That was Ambassador Peter Vowles here on your #1 podcast in the land, the Ola 7 podcast. My name is DJ Ola 7 Owen. We're Kwamadon, the Chief Air Marshal. Signing out. Bye-bye.